You gotta talk a little louder. Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin momentarily. Please take your seats. As a courtesy, please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices at this time. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin momentarily. Please take your seats. As a courtesy, please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices at this time. Thank you. Good afternoon, and welcome to the retirement ceremony in honor of the 40th Chief of Staff of the Army, General James C. McConville. Our host for today's ceremony is the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark A. Milley. Please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem by Staff Sergeant Adam Struby and the invocation delivered by Chaplain Brigadier General William Green.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please bow with me. The wise man Solomon said, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens." Almighty God and merciful God, giver of all good gifts, we thank you today for General McConville and for his years of superior leadership and selfless service to our nation and to our Army. Oh God, bless our time together today as family and friends and fellow soldiers and colleagues join one another in honoring a truly exceptional leader of leaders and a champion of putting people first. Lord, you endowed him with sterling character, tenacious faith, a mighty intellect, wisdom, and countless challenging experience forged, which helped him to stand before us today. We receive your gifts, embrace the opportunities and the responsibilities that came to him, and also made him the man that stand before us today. Heavenly Father, General McConville's legacy as the 40th Chief of Staff of the Army is a legacy that is lasting. And it is also a legacy that has brought us and positioned us for victory in our craft. His inspirational leadership has enabled our Army to keep the lamp of liberty shining brightly in a complex and dangerous world. We ask that you accept our prayers of thanksgiving for him, for his wife Maria, and for their family as he retires and they all begin a new chapter in life. Grant the McConvilles a renewed awareness of your abiding presence during the journey ahead, and the assured conviction that their combined service and sacrifice have made us a better Army and a stronger nation. We pray all these things in your holy name. People first, winning matters, Army strong. Amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, General Milley.
So Secretary Esper just asked me if I was going to be nice, and I said absolutely not. Hey, good afternoon to everyone, and thanks for coming here today. We're here to honor and celebrate the life and service of a great American general, General Jim McConville, the 40th Chief of Staff of the United States Army. But we're also here to honor his family, a true military family, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. We've got a lot of dignitaries here. We've got a very large crowd. I don't want to leave anybody out. There's a lot of generals here, so I suspect that Senator Tuberville might be right that the Army has too many generals. Sorry, he asked me to say that. I just got off the phone with him. So, hey, look, for all the generals, thank you all for being here. There's many of you. There's former chiefs here. There's former vices here. There's a lot of current 4-stars. And I won't rattle you all off because you're filling the first 4 or 5 rows here. But thank you all very much for being here. I do want to point out a couple of people, though. Sergeant Major Grinston, where are you at, Sergeant Major? So I promised... I want to say that Jim McConville asked me to promise him to keep my remarks shorter than yours were this morning. Sorry, brother. We love you. Hey, I do want to single out another person here, Flo. Flo, where you at? Flo Groberg, somewhere in here. Flo on the back. Everybody, I think everybody knows the story of Flo. And Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, literally saved the life of the current director of the Joint Staff, Jim Mingus, and several others. It was a horrible incident, a horrible day, but Flo, thank you for your incredible service and sacrifice for our nation. I do want to point out also Secretary Esper, Secretary McCarthy, Secretary Wormuth, all either current or former secretaries of the Army, and of course one former Secretary of Defense. Thank you for being here. Thanks for your leadership. The Army's in great shape, and the reason the Army's in great shape is because of your collective leadership amongst many other people in the room, but the 3 of you are key to that, and I just want to publicly acknowledge it and say thank you. I think Linda Odierno's somewhere out here in the crowd. I want to thank you, Linda. There you are, Linda. Thank you. As many of you know, I replaced General Odierno as chief. He's a legend. He's a giant in the Army and Army history. His passing was tragic for all of us. But Linda, thank you so much for representing him and your family. And I also want to... And I do want to also thank my 2 best friends, the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Grady here, and my newest best friend, C.Q. Brown over here. So one or the other will be here shortly in 2 months, so stand by and get ready. But thanks to everybody for coming. You know, Jim McConville was supposed to retire a couple of months from now. It wasn't actually supposed to be right now, but I called Secretary Austin and I made sure that it happened sooner. I'd had about enough. So I said, Mr. Secretary, let me give you my best military advice, and it's to retire Jim McConville as soon as possible. So I guess he approved it because that's why we're here. So I'm retiring on the 29th, only 58 days, 8 hours, and 7 minutes from now, so who's counting? But I didn't want McConville to get the last word. So if he retired after me, he would be the one behind the microphone, and I wasn't going to give him that chance because he knows way too much about me. Jim and I have been together literally my entire career. We first met at a party out in Monterey, California, when he met his wife, and we were both assigned to the 7th Division. And I'll stop the story right there. We've served multiple times together over the years, to include a deployment down in Colombia during the Hunt for Pablo in the 90s, when he was with a special mission unit. We served together as G3s, he in the 101st and I in the 25th. We served together as brigade commanders in the mighty 1st Cavalry Division in Baghdad under then General Corelli. Major General Corelli. Mike Murray, I think, is out here as one of the other fellow brigade commanders. Mike, where are you at? There you are, back there. So we served together as brigade commanders. And, of course, we were deputy commanding generals in the 101st together under Jeff Slosher, who's somewhere out here as well, maybe. Jeff, you out here? Airborne? Air assault? Anywhere? No? Where you at? There you are. There's Jeff. So we served under his command in RC East as DCGs together. And then, as luck would have it, I was actually Jim's boss when he commanded the 101st, and I commanded 3 Corps, and General Dunford was the overall commander in ISAF. Jim really enjoyed that. He thought that was a great tour there. And then, you know, as luck would have it, I became Chief of Staff of the Army, and Jim was the G1 and then my vice, so he really enjoyed that. And then, of course, coming out of the House of Pain there, he became Chief of Staff of the Army, and I'm the chairman. So that's why I'm getting the last word. You know, in fact, it's a little-known story. Some know it, and most of it's true, but Jim McConville, I actually owe my life, literally, to Jim McConville. So there we were in Baghdad together one day, and I found myself in my little 4-vehicle patrol as a brigade commander, and we were in a very intense firefight. It was bad. It was not good. It was multiple IEDs. Many of our guys got wounded. We took RPGs, 7 RPGs, automatic weapons fire. Things were not good. So I immediately called for attack helicopter support. Jim McConville shows up, call signs exchanged. He shows up with his AH-64, which in my opinion is the deadliest aircraft in combat, so sorry about that for anyone in the Air Force. I marked my position with purple smoke. Jim rolled in with rockets and guns and quickly destroyed the enemy and literally, no kidding, saved my life. That part of the story is true. And then later, when he was Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, he comes up to me and he says, you know, that day I saved your life. I've regretted it ever since. So, it's true. Most of it. Hey, look, since Jim is now retiring before me, I can stand up here and roast him. And there's absolutely nothing he can do about it. At my retirement, he will just be Mr. McConville, and he won't have a microphone. But right now, the real Mr. McConville is amongst us. And he is the 93-year-old father of Jim McConville, and his name is Joe McConville, sitting right over here. Joe McConville is an amazing man for those of you who participated in the hockey circles in Massachusetts. He is a card-carrying member of the Massachusetts Hockey Hall of Fame. He taught every single kid in Quincy to skate for almost 4 decades. So every hockey player, to include Jim, who ever come out of Quincy, Massachusetts, owes their skills to Joe McConville. So Joe, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. And Jim, of course, had a very distinguished hockey career at Archbishop Williams in Massachusetts, a Catholic school. And of course, with the family legacy like he had with Joe, Jim graduates Archie Bills and heads off to West Point. And at West Point, he plays squash. It's true. Plays squash, not hockey, but he plays squash. I'm like, seriously, Jim, you can't make this up. Squash. I think that explains, actually, why you went from the infantry to aviation. Sorry, brother. You know, over his life, Jim McConville has had a lot of notable firsts. He was, in fact, the first Boston hockey player from the really tough Catholic school league in Massachusetts at Archie Bills to play a non-contact sport like squash. It's never been done before in the history of Massachusetts. You know, I'm from the general area, and I know Boston reasonably well, and I know that a squash is really what happens when a young kid from Quincy goes over to South Boston on a Saturday night. He gets squashed. Flash forward from beginning to end. Jim is also the first aviator to serve as the Army Chief of Staff. And while Jim has some notable firsts, he also has some notable lasts. So he's the last person on active duty from the famous class of West Point, class of 1981. So what that is proof positive. They all got kicked out before he's getting kicked out. Pretty impressive to be the last of the class of 81. And we know that many of them are here today. Dan Allen, for example, Bob Brown, Joe Anderson, Sean McConville, a whole bunch of them, all up there, and hopefully they'll remain on this side of the law for most of the night. The motto of the class was strength is one, and Jim was in company D2, Dragon Company. Are there any D2s up there? Very good. So, you know, West Point was a very formative experience for Jim, or Jimmy Mack, as he was known to all his classmates. Our day was actually pretty rough on him. He was strolling down the middle of the hallway, upset at a new haircut, and getting yelled at by a cow. So I'm not sure what kind of school names their sophomores cows, but West Point's one of them. So he was wondering at that point what he got himself into, being yelled at by a cow, and he thought BU and BC sounded pretty good. So Jimmy Mack demonstrated that he was absolutely clueless walking into West Point. He had no idea what was going on. And of course, no one could understand him either with his thick Quincy accent. It was a tough day for that kid from Quincy. And after that tough day, he thought the only way was to go up. But no, Jim McConville actually found new lows. He found ways to make it worse. As I was preparing for this speech in great detail, I actually called West Point's registrar to get his academic background. I did. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. This is true. And I tried to get his GPA, and the registrar told me there's no way they're giving me their GPA because of privacy laws. And then I told him, I said, look it, I'm former Chief of Staff of the Army, and I'm the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And as far as I'm tracking, West Point is an Army school. It's paid for by the American taxpayer. It's a public school. It should be public information. And they said, no way, privacy laws. They wouldn't give it to me in writing, but they'll be happy to give it to me verbally. It's the honor code. So they told me what his GPA was. And all they said was 2.0 and go. So D2 has new meaning for Jim. The D was for diploma, and the 2 was for his GPA. And they also didn't stop at his GPA. They told me he got in trouble, that he had a few hours marching on the area. But he wasn't blessed enough to be called a century man. No, he matched his mentor, General Cody, and became a 2-century man. Very impressive. So he is not only D2, he's D2-2 for diploma, a 2.0 GPA, and 200 hours on the area. Well done, cadet. There were 970 cadets that graduated from West Point that year, and Jim was actually near the tail end. He wasn't quite the GOAT. That honor goes to someone else, but he was the GOAT's first cousin. And if he would have played hockey instead of squash, he might have been the honor grad. He could have been a star man. But despite his hours in the area, and despite his athletic and academic challenges, West Point produced an incredible officer. One of only 3 4-stars in the class of 81, all 3 of whom came from West Point: Dan Allen, Bob Brown, and Jim. Across the Army in that year of 1981, there were 5,676 lieutenants commissioned. And of that number, only 3 became 4-stars. Now, I'm no math major, but I do have an iPhone. And I went on ChatGPT. I used to do Siri, but now I do ChatGPT. And I checked AI, and I crunched the statistics. And 3 divided by 5676 equals 0.0005, or 1/20th of 1%. Now, that translates into Princeton math. And that means that Jim actually has a statistically greater probability of playing for the Boston Bruins and winning the Stanley Cup than he does of becoming a four-star in the United States Army. That's true. It's statistically true. In fact, he would have been more likely to make it into the Massachusetts Hall of Fame like his dad as a squash player than to be a four-star in the United States Army. Statistically, I don't know who writes this stuff. Statistically, it was very unlikely for Jim to be where he is today. But if you ask anyone that knew him as a lieutenant, they would say that they were certain that he would go far. Leaving West Point, Jim commissioned as an infantry officer, and then at that time, aviation wasn't a branch, so Jim volunteered to be a pilot, and he started out in the 2nd Squadron, 10th Cav, and from the beginning it was obvious that he had exceptional talents as a tactical aviator. There are very few pilots that can match Jim McConville's skill in the cockpit. It was fitting that he was plucked from the traditional aviation path and selected for our most elite aviation special operations unit, where he served under one of his lifelong mentors, the now retired former Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, General Dick Cody, who's here with us. And General Cody, thank you so much for your leadership and your mentorship in forming Jim McConville. Even among the prestigious group of the very best, it was clear that Jim McConville was different and exceptional. He had an innate ability to make rapid decisions under conditions of great uncertainty, and he excelled in the art of command. And I am personal witness to his unparalleled leadership time and time again in the most dangerous and consequential of conditions. He's qualified and flew combat missions in a 58 Kiowa, 64 Apache, an AH-6 Little Bird, AH-1 Cobra, and many, many other aircraft. He has multiple combat rotations to Afghanistan, Iraq, and many other places that cannot be mentioned in public. In the history of the Army, he was the longest-serving division commander of the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, Rendezvous with Destiny. You look around this room, and everyone here today has a story that demonstrates the powerful presence and courage of Jim McConville. Like on day one of the Battle of Fallujah, where Jim McConville is a brigade commander in the 1st Cav. He's flying a combat sortie in the front seat of his Apache and gets an urgent call from the 2-7 commander, then Lieutenant Colonel, now General Jim Rainey, who's also here today. Jim was black on ammo. The weather was terrible. It was at night, and the pilots could barely see anything. But Jim flew and coordinated his unit to haul in ammo that Rainey needed to keep fighting. It was a dangerous mission, and the helicopters basically had to execute a blind air assault into a friendly position to get ammo to Rainey and his soldiers. As Jim McConville used to say, when we fly, soldiers don't die. And I am personal testament to that, as well as many people here today. It is never more true than that night with Jim Rainey. And we can all tell hours of stories on Jim McConville about his competence, his courage, and his character. He's an incredible leader, and he has the breadth and depth of experience that very few can ever compare to. He's led our Army for many, many years. He's in his 43rd year of service. He's led it in peace and war, not only in the United States, but across the globe. His career is now culminating as Chief of Staff of the Army, where he oversaw the largest transformation in 4 decades, modernizing how the Army fights in all domains, and his legacy will last for decades. He built a cohesive Army team that is trained, disciplined, and ready to fight, and they will win wherever this nation needs them. He put people first and never lost focus that winning always matters. The Army shaped who Jim McConville is, but Jim's attributes came long before he ever put on a uniform at West Point. And they came from his family, his coaches, his teachers, and his friends. Jim McConville is here today. He is successful today because of you, all of you, and many who are not here. His skills and talents built upon a solid foundation of character and real humility. This foundation was created in the hard-scrabble streets of Quincy. It was built by his parents, Barbara and Joe. And although Barbara's not with us anymore, she's looking down with great joy and pride today. That character was honed by his sister, Mary Kate, and his brothers, Joe, John, and Paul, which sounds a little bit like a Catholic church choir. His parents, Barbara and Joe, instilled in him the importance of hard work, service, and sacrifice. His father, Joe, served in the Navy on an LST during the Korean War and continued to lead his family and community in Quincy as a hardworking, devoted husband, father, and great American. His mother, Barbara, was a caring woman devoted to the faith, family, and, of course, the Boston Red Sox. They were a working-class family with a wealth of character. The whole McConville family represents the very ideals of what it means to be an American. Quincy was home to 2 presidents, John Hancock, 18 generals, dating back to the Revolutionary War. With the McConville family, there must be something in the water. In fact, the mayor of Quincy, who's here with us today, he honored its 3 most famous generals: General Sullivan, a former Chief of Staff of the Army; General Dunford, former Chairman of the Joint Chiefs; and, of course, General McConville. The mayor erected life-size statues to all 3 in what is known as General's Corner in the heart of Quincy, at the intersection of Sullivan Street, Dunford Drive, and McConville Way. And I told Jim that sooner or later I was going to get up there with a rope and pull a statue down and spray paint it red. I won't do that. Might spray paint it. Hey, look at Jim spent his youth on the sports fields and on the streets, playing Marines with, guess who? Joe Dunford. And while working at the Quincy Sewage Department, Jim realized he did not want to spend his future shoveling waste, so he shipped off to West Point. Luckily, he graduated. And on his first assignment in the 7th Infantry Division, he met his wife, Maria, at that Navy Postgraduate School Officers Club in Monterey, California. And I actually was present, at least as much as I can remember. Thankfully, Maria reined him in, because I have seen Jim on 17 Mile Drive in conditions that were probably reportable at the time, but we didn't report it. Maria is an amazing woman. She served in the Army herself in uniform for 11 years, is a registered dietitian, owns a business, published a book, and devoted her time and energy to the greater Army family to create spouse resiliency programs and working as a military health educator. Together, Jim and Maria raised 3 amazing children who carry on their legacy of service. Over Jim's 43 years of service, he and his family have moved 23 times. That means his kids moved, made new friends, attended new schools, joined new teams, experienced the stress of sending dad off to war way too many times. In fact, it's our kids who sacrifice way more than we do. And where are they now? Michael is a major in our most elite Special Operations Aviation Unit, and he's here today with his spouse, Catherine, so thank you, Michael, for your service. Jim and Maria's daughter, Jessica, is here today. She's a captain with 5th Special Forces Group, and her husband, Ryan, is also here, and he is currently with the 101st Airborne Division as an infantry officer. Thank you for your service. And Jim and Maria's youngest son, Ryan, is also here. He formerly served in Task Force 160 and now is with the 16th Combat Aviation Brigade, and his wife, Tanya, is here, and they have their young son, Patton, named after another former great American general. So thank you to all 3 of you and your spouses and your grandkids for being here today. You make us all so proud. Every one of them, every one of the kids in uniform, has each served multiple tours in combat in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's an amazing military family. It's an incredible example of resilience and the living embodiment of the motto, Army Strong. So thanks to each of you. And you can see it in his family that Jim McConville works hard, not for personal accolades, but to ensure that others around him reach their full potential. His presence truly inspires people to be better. He brings out the best in everyone. Jim challenges others with opportunity. He gives guidance and gets out of the way, allowing his subordinates to develop solutions. He has a knack for knowing where he needs to be and when he needs to be there. He knows how to make strategic decisions while never forgetting the tactical impact of those decisions. As he grapples with tough decisions that would shape the Army for decades, he always thought about how it would influence the youngest private lieutenants on the front line and who would be the future sergeant majors or colonels or generals. He was always concerned about how his decisions affected soldiers and their families. He truly cares deeply about the people under his leadership. People have always been Jim McConville's #1 priority. When I was Chief of Staff of the Army, Jim was the vice, and we received a letter from 2 families whose son had died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan a few years before. The families lacked closure. Jim said he would take care of it. The families came out to the Pentagon, and Jim met with them. It turned out that Jim was their commanding general in the 101st when their soldier was killed. During the meeting, the family asked if he had remembered the events where they perished. Jim solemnly nodded his head and pulled out his personal notebook. He flipped a few pages and recounted the details of that fateful day. The worn pages of his notebook contained the memories and stories of every single soldier that died under Jim's command in Afghanistan. That is who Jim McConville is. Beyond being a pilot, beyond being a skilled officer, he is a man full of compassion, character, and deep humility. He was acutely aware of the blank check that every single man and woman who wears the uniform of our nation wrote to the United States of America. Because of this, he works tirelessly to make sure our soldiers are well trained and equipped for the challenges they're facing. And Jim bore these risks right alongside his soldiers. He never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do. It's clear that Jim had not only physical courage, but he also had moral courage. His soldiers knew that Jim McConville would always stand behind him. You know, as many of us in this room know too much of combat, war is filled with fog and fear and friction, and young soldiers are forced to make life and death decisions under fire with imperfect information. Jim always operated not only with tactical skill, but moral courage every day under the most difficult of conditions. Jim McConville has been tested in the crucible of combat. But no matter the challenge, he always maintained his integrity and never lost sight of his internal North Star. He fought not for today, but for tomorrow, so that we would protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America for our children and our children's children. Every single one of us temporarily occupy a moment of time, and Jim is no different. Soon, someone else will step forward to continue to lead our Army. But this experiment in liberty we call the United States is worth fighting for, not merely for today, but for all time. And Jim, you have fought for this country with courage and honor, and you've led our Army with distinction. So on behalf of the Joint Force, on behalf of a grateful nation, to you and Maria and Michael and Jessica and Ryan, thank you. To your father, Joe, to your mother, Barbara, your brothers and sisters, all of us here today are here to honor you and to simply say thank you. We thank you and your entire family. We thank you for a life of selfless service to the greatest nation on earth. And may God bless you and your family in retirement, and may God bless America.
Would Mrs. McConville please join General McConville and General Milley in front of the flags? Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated during the publishing of the orders and presentations. Attention to orders. The Defense Distinguished Service Medal is awarded to General James C. McConville. General McConville distinguished himself by exceptionally meritorious service in a duty of great responsibility as Chief of Staff of the Army from August 2019 to August 2023. During this period, General McConville led a talented military and civilian team in the successful planning and execution of efforts that integrated joint, interagency, and multinational efforts. Despite the global pandemic and recruiting challenges, the force remained globally responsive and regionally engaged with nearly 160,000 soldiers supporting combatant commanders in over 140 worldwide locations. During an extraordinarily challenging period across the world and the nation, General McConville's consistent and persistent determination and leadership drove the Army's monumental transformational change without compromising the readiness of forces. His mastery of leadership, strategic vision, and uncompromising support to the force exemplified the highest examples of duty, honor, and courage. The joint force is stronger, and the Army is better because of his decisive leadership for the nation. General McConville's legacy will live on through the men and women he influenced during his time as the chief. The distinctive accomplishments of General McConville reflect great credit upon himself, the United States Army, and the Department of Defense. Signed, Lloyd J. Austin III, Secretary of Defense. A certificate of retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States of America is now being presented to General McConville. The certificate reads, "This is to certify that General James C. McConville, having served faithfully and honorably, is retired from the United States Army." Signed, Christine E. Wormuth, Secretary of the Army. On behalf of the non-commissioned officers assigned to the office of the Chief of Staff of the Army, this flag was folded and is presented to General McConville in honor of his distinguished service as the Chief of Staff of the Army. People first. Winning matters. Be all you can be. The Secretary of Defense Medal for Outstanding Public Service is presented to Maria McConville. Mrs. Maria McConville is recognized for outstanding public service in support of members of the United States Armed Forces from August 2013 to July 2023. During this period, Mrs. McConville was a driving force behind many initiatives that enhanced family readiness and resiliency. She enthusiastically volunteered her time and myriad of talents in military communities around the world in support of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, civilians, and families. Her caring leadership and vigorous involvement in a full range of military communities and well-being programs help build stronger families and improve their quality of life. From visiting wounded warriors and comforting them in their time of need, to working with numerous military support organizations and veteran support groups that aid and assist the families of the men and women serving our nation, she was unwavering in her commitment to making a difference in the lives of others. Mrs. McConville has been a highly effective ambassador for the Army and Department of Defense and leaves a substantial legacy of public service that will benefit military families for years to come. The distinctive accomplishments of Mrs. McConville reflect great credit upon herself and the Department of Defense. Signed, Lloyd J. Austin III, Secretary of Defense. A certificate of appreciation is now being presented to Mrs. McConville. The certificate reads, "This is to certify that Maria McConville, on the occasion of the retirement of your spouse from the United States Army, has earned grateful appreciation for your own unselfish, faithful, and devoted service. Your unfailing support and understanding helped to make possible your spouse's lasting contribution to the nation." Signed, Christine E. Wormuth, Secretary of the Army. General Milley. Will the McConville children and their spouses please join General and Mrs. McConville as they unveil the portrait of the 40th Chief of Staff of the Army, General James C. McConville.
Yeah, but before we go ahead and do this, one of the things, and first of all, thank you, General Milley, for those kind words. Those kind words. But, I'm very blessed to have this incredible team that we work together. And, as a commander, you give guidance. And I don't know if we can bring that up, but here's the guidance I gave, the initial guidance for this picture. And it was right over here, So they asked you, they're going to do a picture, a portrait. So there it is. I kind of drew that figure. And then I said, okay, a little more guidance. Next figure. Okay, got a little better. And that's the type of guidance my staff got. And then go ahead and bring up the rest. And they went from there, went over here, and there we have it. So, and thanks for the kids coming up here. We'll go ahead and unveil this thing. So there you have it. How do you want to do that? Okay. Yeah. There you go. All right.
Thank you, McConville family. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, General McConville will be joined by Chief Warrant Officer 5, Yolandria Dixon Carter, for the unveiling of the United States of America Winning Matters Trademark Certificate. Ladies and gentlemen, General James C. McConville.
All right, well, first of all, hey, this is really special, y'all being here. Good afternoon, and really, as you start to think about, how do you take 42 years of serving, with the world's greatest people and try to put it into a 14-minute speech? And, so what I decided to do is go ahead and try to show some pictures. And because pictures are worth about 1,000 words. And, what I'd like to do is really start with the chairman and General Milley. As he said, he and I have been through a lot of things together. And it starts, 40 years ago. We don't have pictures in the Naval Postgraduate School because we didn't take pictures in those days. And it's a good thing we didn't have pictures of you. And, but, what it really was about is the last 19 years, the chairman and I have been together multiple times in combat, multiple tours in the Pentagon. You can look back here, we were middle-aged, we were soldiers as brigade commanders, and many of you know those leaders and what they ended up doing, and then serving together in the 101st. But what I can tell you about General Milley is in combat, he always led from the front. And he was in that firefight, and he did that about every night. He was out there getting in some type of firefight, and we just happened to be there. There was nothing heroic about what we did. And, what I can say, though, is what a great combat leader. But more importantly, we've served multiple tours here, and he has always done the right thing for the nation, the right thing for the country. And I just want to, thank you for being our chairman. Thank you for being my friend, even though you said all those great things about me, So, but no, we've been together, a long time, and Holly Ann is with the kids and doing that stuff. But thank you. How about a hand for our chairman? How about that? Okay. And the last picture is our service chiefs, and thank you for all being here. CQ, congratulations, and we look forward. I know the chairman's looking forward to your confirmation, but we are too, because the country needs your leadership. And special thanks to our secretary. We're blessed to have great civilian leadership. And as I take a look behind me, the great leaders that we've had have put the Army in a great place. It's a lot of people go, hey, why don't you just do things? Things are hard to get done, in the Pentagon. They're just hard. You know, I like to use the metaphor, it's like pushing a boulder up the hill. And those that say just do this, they just haven't worked in the Pentagon and tried to get things done. And you know what I appreciate, you know, the Army's on a big transformation. It started with Secretary Esper, General Milley, and Secretary McCarthy, and the Secretary has continued to push that boulder, and we're getting closer and closer. And all, you know, the Secretariat, what you do, your commitment to our soldiers really matter. And I really appreciate what you all done and continue to do over the next couple of years. And then, you know, a lot of the vices are here, former chiefs, and you know, I've just been incredibly blessed to have these gentlemen as mentors, as bosses, as classmates, as friends, and it's great to have a grandson too. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to thank General Shinseki, sir. You and Patty, you are the epitome of what right looks like. Your integrity, the example you set for us all is just, how about a handle for General? And I do, you know, the chairman mentioned Linda Odiano, and General O will always be General O to us. And he was a great man and, you know, and a great leader. But for me personally, during some very challenging times as the Chief of Staff of the Army, when there were really, you needed some really sage advice and counsel, and he gave me that. And we found out later he was going through some tough times for himself. And so from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate that, Linda, and thank you for being who you are, and thank you for General O's leadership. So how about a hand? You know, as I look up at those pictures, and it's just really incredibly impressive. And you know, we're proud that General Randy George and Patty are going to take over the Army. And again, we look forward to their confirmation. The Army is in great shape with the leaders that we have, and quite frankly, I think the leaders that are coming up are the best I've seen, at least in my 42 years. So the Army will be in great hands. And then, you know, very blessed, we retired the Sergeant Major of the Army this morning. And, you know, those are, I've been very, very blessed to have him and the Chief's Chief, D.C. Dixon Carter. And what a wonderful team to work with. You know, with the Secretary, myself, the under, and the squad, but, you know, very, very special with the Chief's Chief, D.C. Dixon Carter, what he does for our warrant officers, and the Sergeant Major of the Army. They just don't get any better than that. And when you're going through some of the challenges we have, to have their perspective, always, you know, giving you great counsel. I just want to thank each and you two. So I'm going to give you guys a hand. And, you know, as I look out, there's a lot of the 4-stars that have come, and as, you know, and I don't think we have too many, Chairman. I think we don't have enough. We need more. No, but what you all do, and as I look up at that wall and see all the great general officers that I've served with, and a special thanks to the Army staff. That is just tough, hard work for those who've served on the Army staff, grinding every single day, thankless work. But I do want to highlight or thank our Director of the Army Staff, Walt Pyatt. And all of us that know, and I'll leave it at that. There's no finer human being. There's no one committed more to the Army. There's no one under pressure that has done the right thing the right way. And I will always be indebted to him for 4 years as the Director of the Army Staff, and I just want to thank him. So how about a hand for our guy? In the office of the Chief of Staff of the Army, and you know, these things like today, there's a lot of great civilians behind the scenes that do the work. You know, I kind of, you know, it was not really meant to be a joke, but you know, often we give very, you know, little guidance and they do the work that make all these events go on. They're always standing behind the side. They're making, these events for the nation so special. And, as I look at, my XOs and my aides and DC and Michelle and all the people that do the work every single day, we certainly couldn't do what we do without you. So just a profound thank you from me. And and the chairman talked about, us growing up in Quincy, and we got the mayor here. So, Mayor, really proud to have you here, and really proud of our hometown. It's a little over 100,000, and it's a town that punches well above its weight. Not like Winchester. Winchester can't afford statues, so I don't know what's up with that. But we're going to get Mayor Koch to talk to your mayor, General Milley, and see if they'll get maybe a small statue, maybe a bust, but we'll get that for you. No, it's it's a great town to grow up in. And my brothers here, Kevin McCarthy's here. We've known each other since we were 3 years old, and it's really interesting because as we all played sports. Everyone played sports. When and what was in the water, when you get knocked down, you got back up. And that's just the way it was. Everyone worked hard. There was nothing given to you. We all had great parents. And what's interesting is just about all the parents, all the men had served in some capacity either during World War II or during the Korean War. And as I look there, I see General Sullivan and General Dunford. The truth, and Kevin McCarthy will bear this out, is we used to play Army. We weren't playing Marines. Joe will deny that to this day. He says he's playing Marines, but I don't know. I'll ask Kevin. He'll probably, confirm that for us. But what a great town to have, a chairman, 2 chiefs of staff, 2 presidents, 2 Medal of Honor recipients, and it's really what's in the people. They're just great patriots. In fact, I was thinking about that, Mayor. Patriots Day with Mark Wahlberg was actually filmed in the city, so got that going for us too. And if you know, just for a little trivia, Dunkin' Donuts was founded in Quincy. There you have it. So, I do want to thank my dad. And he was an enlisted sailor in the Navy during the Korean War, and then he worked at the Boston Gear Works for 49 and a half years. And he's the one that inspired me to serve. And, I look at him, 93 years old, and if we measured wealth in this country by character, he'd be one of the richest men in the nation. So, Dad, thank you. And he and my mom raised 5 kids, and we were altar boys, but we were not choir boys growing up, I guess, the way to describe it. And it was really special. And, I look at Quincy and I just say, what a great place to grow up, and a lot of why I'm here. And then this is my West Point class of 1981, Strength of One. Thank you all for being here. And I figured I'd throw some pictures up there. I think Patty and Gail are here. Patty and Gail, are you here somewhere? There you are. They're waving over there. So, first of all, I want to thank all my classmates for coming. And, we have over 11,500 hours of service in the class, which is pretty impressive. And the chairman mentioned, but, great combat leaders like Dan Allen, Bob Brown, Joe Anderson, Sean McFarland, and quite frankly, a whole bunch of other ones that we just don't have the time to talk about. But we also have a lot of great doctors, and some I even play golf with. A congressman, senior Army civilians, and just a whole bunch of classmates who have really had a significant impact on our nation. And, you know, I went off to West Point with Gail, Patty, and Mike, and I guess that's what I look like with long hair. And, you know, and as I take a look at it, I think Gail actually wrote in her book, Tough as Nails, and she was tough as nails. She goes, in high school, Jim was a funny guy, full of potential, not so full of effort. And I think she definitely got it right, you know? And so for all those with unrealized potential, there's hope for everyone, you know? And as I look, you know, my company's right there, and many of my roommates have come. Very fortunate to have President Reagan as our graduation speaker, and he gave the Peace Through Strength speech during that time. And then for a couple of years, if you look in the far left over there, I was up in the top floor of the library last month, and the class of 1981 has a gift up there. So for all you who never went to the library, go for the first time, see our plaque, and you'll be really proud of our class. So. And then, as the chairman said, Fort Ord, California was our first assignment. And we were in an air cavalry unit, and it was really a very special time. You know, I take a look at many of my roommates. You know, we lived in Pebble Beach, Carmel, Monterey, in these large mansions. And I look around, I had a hard time finding pictures where we didn't have a lot of drinks in our hand, but we found a couple. But what was special was that I met Maria there in June of 1985. And, you know, she's the reason why we're still here. And, you know, made lifelong friends in Pebble Beach. And, you know, we worked hard and we played hard. And we made sure that the Soviet Union never attacked the Monterey Peninsula. And it didn't. And they didn't. So it was great. So, and then, you know, one of the assignments was defining for me was flight concepts. And it was there that I met a lieutenant colonel named Lieutenant Colonel Dick Cody. And he's been a lifelong mentor and coach for me, sir, and I really appreciate, you know, all the time you spent with me. There was a lot of time. We did a lot of great things there. And, you know, I also had the opportunity, and we had these incredible warrant officers, and I learned the power of warrant officers and what they could do. And you'll see a lot of pictures of these great warrants. I think, is Steve Davison here? He's back there. Steve's right up there. And, you know, these were the best aviators in the world, by far the best. And you made my slide if you're in the Aviation Hall of Fame, you know, so if you didn't get in the Hall of Fame, but they're all in the Hall of Fame. And really this picture here is a picture that Steve Kilgore took. You know, behind every successful aviation commander, there's a great warrant officer. And that's what this assignment taught me. And then at the end is General Doug Brown, who's also one of our you know, senior four-star aviators who I had a chance to work for. And they impacted, you know, both General Cody and myself throughout my career. And then there was the 1st Cavalry Division. And, you know, well, we went to the 101st, too. We'll throw the 101st in there as a cavalry squad. That was my first trip there, and really special. Let's go to the 1st Cavalry Division. There we go. And, you know, if you look at that division, and when we take a look, you know, that's where, when I take a look at the brigade commanders of who came out, you know, you look at Abe, Mike for Mike, Mike Murray, Steve Landers here, you know, the chairman. Paul Funk was the G3. Jim Rainey was in that division. That was a division that could fight. And it was, for me, very special to serve with them. And, you know, even Geraldo was with us in the 1st Cav Division down the end. Everyone wanted to fly with the 1st Cav and be with the 1st Cav. But that was a very special time. Very great war fighters. And I was just so proud to have the opportunity to serve in that division. And then getting a chance to go back to the 101st. And again, seeing the incredible sergeant majors that we had in that division. Many of you know Command Sergeant Major Scott Schroeder, Alonzo Smith, and then at the time, Sergeant Major of the Army Tony Grinston was the Command Sergeant Major for the Currahees. And I think right there, that's J.C. Campbell. Got a chance to change command, so he made the pictures. But just a incredible division that very honored to serve within. And then as the Chief of Staff of the Army, you know, the privilege of serving with the world's greatest soldiers in the company of heroes. And, you know, we talked about, you know, Flo Groberg in the back. And in fact, he not only saved Jim Mingus, he saved Dan Walras, life too, one of our brigade commanders in the 101st Airborne Division when he did that. But we also had the opportunity to serve with Earl Plumley, who was with us in the 101st, and again, just, you know, the ability to serve with the heroes. But, you know, as I take a look at this, I take a look at the, you know, all the pictures and all the people that we've had a chance to serve, and, you know, I just couldn't serve on a better team. And then, you know, Maria and I we're blessed, you know, with our kids. And, you know, when you think about it, with all the moves, with all the things that we've had to do, I'm just so proud of each and every one of them. They're all off the payroll right now, which is really important when you're a parent, you know. They all married great spouses, and they all chose to serve, and they've all served very, very well. And I'm proud of each and every one of them for the fine young men and women they turned out to be, and the fine women and men that they chose to marry. And you know, it's kind of hard when your dad's the Chief of Staff of the Army. Michael apologized for those extra push-ups in Pathfinder School on McConville Road, and the extra lap around the mountains at Ranger School when they found out, you know, you're the 101st kid, all those things. But it's made you a better person, so we appreciate that. You know? And then, you know, my last and really is Maria. And I look at these pictures, and you can see us smiling in the marathon, and, you know, that's where we started. You know, we kind of worked our way through, and that's actually at the Boston Marathon. And I kind of look at this as kind of symbolic that, you know, this has been a marathon. I look at the beach, but here's something I need to show you, because like when, you know, we never kind of, like many, knew how long we were going to be doing this, so it was always the next assignment. And then I made a promise to her. In fact, I gave her this key, and it was to our house in Florida in 2014. And I thought that was going to be our last assignment, so I said, that's it. We're going to, you know, here we are, we're going to 101st Airborne Division Commander. We're going to retire. Well, then, you know, they asked me to stay for another job, so I said, okay, I will. And then what I did was I filled out this. I actually signed this. I said, okay, Maria, this is it, you know. And it was signed 16 June 2017, and that was when I became the vice. Well, they made me the chief. So on the bottom of this, Maria, this is really it, and it's signed 4 August 2023, and I just want to thank you for you know, being the great person you are. And as we embark on our next rendezvous destiny, I just want to tell each and every one of you what a great honor it has been to serve with you. And God bless each and every one of you, and thank you. Thank you.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Army Band and Downrange will now perform the song Sweet Caroline as a special tribute to General McConville.
All right, here are the instructions. I need you all to sing along at the appointed times. Please and thank you. Let's give General a proper send-off. Where it began, I can't begin to know it. then I know it's growing strong. Was in the spring, then spring became the summer. Who'd have believed you'd come along? Hands, touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. I've been inclined to believe they never would, but now I look at the night and it don't seem so lonely. We fill it up with only two. And when I hurtin' runs off my shoulders. How can I hurt when holding you? Warm, touching warm, reaching out, touching me, touching you. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. I've been inclined to believe they never would. Oh, no, no. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. Sweet Caroline, I believe they never could. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. Sweet Caroline, I believe they never could. Sweet Caroline.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the singing of the Army song led by Staff Sergeant Strube. The words to the Army song will be displayed on the front wall.
March along, sing a song with the army of the free. Count the brave, count the true, who have fought to victory.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. We invite guests to congratulate General and Mrs. McConville in front of the flags. Thank you for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.